Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 16, the week of September 1st, 2023. My name is Drew Koenig. With me is, I guess we can say, the official co-host of this podcast, Matt Vasassi. Hi.
Hey, I officially got upgraded.
Yes.
It's great. It's so arbitrary, but I don't care. I like it.
Who cares? Life is arbitrary. Existence is arbitrary.
I live for titles and justifications, so having official title works for me. I'm like, I need that. I need that validation.
Anyways, let's get into some news this week. So we had a couple passings this week. First off is Bob Barker, famously from The Price is Right. Who,
To be dead honest, I thought he died like a few years ago.
I swear to God, I thought the same thing.
I was like, I turned to my roommate and I was like, didn't he die like 6 years ago? And she goes, I thought so, but apparently not. So apparently that's not just me.
I think I just assumed that because like Drew Carey has been hosting The Price is Right for so long that I just assumed that Bob Barker died instead of had just retired for many years.
Well, he had retired and like he was sick, and so like I guess I just assumed that he died not long after, and so I guess it's fine.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, Bob Barker, we love you.
We do love you, but he has.
We just didn't realize.
Yeah, he has officially passed away now.
As someone said on Twitter, he got as close to 100 without going over.
Exactly. Yes.
Which is one of the best things that has been said about his passing. So
the other passing from this week is Arlene Sorkin, who famously was the voice of Harley Quinn on Batman the Animated Series, who was just an iconic voice. A voice that, for everyone that played Harley Quinn after her, had to decide, would she do the voice or would they depart from, which is the making of an icon. Like, that is the standard.
She made the character her own. Like, no one can ever measure up to her.
Well, and the even just the look of Harley Quinn was based off of her from an episode of, what was it, Days of Our Lives? Where she had dressed as a clown. I believe it was a dream sequence in the 80s where she had dressed as a clown. So like, even just down to the look, the voice, everything that is Harley Quinn was Arlene Sorkin, and she will definitely be missed, especially within the pantheon of Batman. Which means that this also means that like the major players of like Batman the Animated Series, most of them have passed away at this point, because we also lost Kevin Conroy.
Yes.
So it's pretty much just like Mark Hamill holding down the house at this point.
Yeah, it is. And his tweet about it was really beautiful.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mark Hamill's always a very kind and considerate person, and so like just to see him, pay tribute to her in such a beautiful way, it was nice.
So rest in peace to an icon. But let's get into some more strike news this week. First is that apparently the heads of the AMPTP, specifically Bob Iger and David Zaslav, are surprised that they are villains in the eyes of the public, which is like, it's very much, what do you mean I have to accept the consequences of my own actions?
Right.
It's a tweet from a few years ago, where it's like, when I'm reaping, it's like, oh, hell yeah. And then when I'm sowing, it's like, what the hell is this?
It's just, it still blows my mind just how far removed from reality these CEOs are. Like, they think that, like, the rules don't apply and that public opinion will always be positive about them because, well, hell, they created the thing that the public loves. And we're like, no.
You know what? I can somewhat understand it with Bob Iger because he's Disney, right?
Right.
with David Zaslav, at no point has anyone ever liked David Zaslav. From the moment that he came onto Warner Brothers Discovery to now, has been a series of colossal fuck-ups that has left no one with a positive thought towards him. So for him, he is truly the picture of delusional thinking.
Oh, I think that what happens is that his people don't let him see the negative feedback, that he just lives in this little tiny bubble of everybody loves me. And it's really just his family saying we love you because you give us money.
Right, and it's impossible it's impossible for me to fathom someone thinking that. For someone so profoundly unpopular.
Yeah.
It's really even within celebrity Hollywood, it's difficult to be that unpopular. That is a level of unpopular that you have to go to politics for.
It just keeps. Well, there was an article that was released either today or yesterday that was like the MPTP is losing, they need to just give up. And I'm like, they're losing. No one wants what they want, and therefore they're not going to win this battle. These people are not giving up. The strike is going to continue until they change their ways, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there was a SAG event at the Universal lot yesterday or day before, called Dungeons and Dragons and Demands, led by Brendan Lee Mulligan of Dimension 20. And he said something, probably the best thing I've heard out of this, which is, we are all fighting a monster that depends on everyone's belief that it cannot be defeated, which is a great summation of the way that AMPTP believes about itself. The other piece of news that came in just today was that AMC has struck an agreement with SAG-AFTRA to continue filming some of their Walking Dead series, plus a season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, which is a really interesting deal. There's a lot of good about that and a lot of bad about that.
Yeah.
The good about that is that it shows a departure from the AMPTP, right? Because while AMC is a part of the AMPTP, they are not part of the leadership. Right. But AMC is also a big player within TV. This would probably mean more if this was 5 to 10 years ago. Because AMC has kind of devolved from what it used to be to now being where they can just have a property and spin that off, which is basically what they are getting from this, which is The Walking Dead and some Anne Rice shows, so it's not quite as impactful as it might have been a few years ago, where during the era of Breaking Bad and Mad Men, where they were uncontested one of the best networks on TV. But it's still a very significant win for SAG-AFTRA. The part of this where it's bad is that that deal does not extend to the WGA.
Right.
So while they have actors, they don't have writers. That's not to say that such a deal couldn't be extended to WGA. I've heard a lot of people saying that such a deal couldn't happen with WGA, which I don't quite understand why a deal can be made with SAG but not WGA. But theoretically, such a deal could be extended to WGA. Whether or not that's realistic could still happen. Time will tell. But it is ultimately a good thing that AMC has reached a deal with SAG, because it means that if AMC does it, other people might see that as a path forward. And AMC has AMC Plus, which is a streaming service that ostensibly they agreed to SAG's demands, strictly speaking, revenue, residuals, So if AMC is agreeing to this, other studios might agree to this down the line. Something that I think the trade report noted that other studios like Sony and Paramount are paying close attention to this. This is a really hardening thing, and even if like it kind of even if it ruins like Interview with a Vampire, which I think was a very good first season. If you have to sacrifice Interview with a Vampire to make all of this work, then that might be a sacrifice worth making.
Yeah.
You know? Because doing season 2 without writers for Interview with the Vampire is a colossal mistake. But if that's what has to happen to like push all of this forward, then that might be just what has to happen. I think that is the extent of the news from this week. Well, we'll keep in touch to see what the rest of the studios end up doing over the week, because I feel like this might be the canary in the coal mine.
It might be because now also other industries are striking. American Airlines has voted 99.4%, I think, to strike for their wages and fair treatment and all that stuff too. So we'll see.
And
It's definitely
also
revolutionary.
Also the auto workers.
Yes.
Over the week decided to strike.
Yep.
And I believe VFX has also decided to strike too.
Yes, they have. The visual effects people have decided to strike as well. So I feel like we're on Oprah right now, and she's saying, "You get a strike, you get a strike, you get a strike." Everyone's striking, and it's a good thing. Like, we do need some better economic standards for workers across the board.
Yeah. And I'm a part of a union at work, and I'm just like, so when are we striking? When's it happen? When's it going down?
I am not in a union type job, unfortunately, but I support those who are.
Yes.
My grandfather was a union man.
I would strike at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I would strike for a Klondike bar. So let's jump into the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them up against each other on a poll on Twitter and TikTok. Last week, Mads nominated Teen Wolf season 3, episode 9, Motel California, and I nominated Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars. And once again, it was not to be. I cannot win.
I even tried to self-sabotage myself, okay? I posted it saying I wanted Drew to win. So, like, I was encouraging people not to vote for my thing, and people still voted for Teen Wolf.
Yep. But you know what? We carry on. We persevere.
We continue.
So, since you won the last GOAT, you get to go first here.
All right. So this pick is topical, but also like taking it back to early 2000s. So I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I have been watching since 2008, when my sister introduced me. I love the show. And I decided to go back and like rewatch in preparation for the 60th anniversary celebration that's coming up at the end of this year. And in that respect, I'm on season 4, which is one of my absolute favorite seasons because of in my book, the best companion that has ever existed in the history of Doctor Who, which is Donna Noble. I adore Donna Noble. She is scrappy. She doesn't let a man tell her what to do. I mean, the first time she meets the Doctor, she demands that he return her to Earth, even though it's not his fault that she showed up in the TARDIS. And, she just is immediately not fazed by this guy. She's just like, I don't give a fuck where you're from. I want to go home. Like, let me go home. And she keeps calling him a Martian, and he keeps saying, I'm not from Mars. And like, that just kind of proves that, like, they already have a dynamic, even though they're not officially doctor and companion yet. So then when we get to season 4 and she returns and actually goes on adventures with him for a good chunk of time, you see that for one of the first times the doctor's not infatuated with his companion, which doesn't happen all that often. I feel like the writers try to make the doctor and companion be a romantic kind of thing. And I love Donna Noble because she's just like, I'm gonna treat you like you're my annoying older brother. And it works for her. And she's and Catherine Tate is just a phenomenal actress. So this week my pick is the amazing, tenacious Donna Noble.
I don't feel good about my chances.
Which Donna Noble is returning for the 60th, guys, in case you didn't know.
I very much do not feel good about my chances here. But I'm gonna give this a good old try anyways.
The good old Harvard try.
Yeah. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I have been watching the X-Files lately. So I was not successful with my pick of Agent Dana Scully, tragically. So I'm gonna try again.
I'm not sure how you're not successful with that, but
it was shocking, galling, in fact. But I'm gonna try again here with my pick of the X-Files season 3, episode 4, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, which is famously one of the X-Files' best episodes, written by the great Darren Morgan, who wrote just some of the best X-Files episodes they ever put out. And this is just classic example of Mulder believes something spooky, and Scully goes, but, and it's great. This guest stars Peter Boyle, famously from Everybody Loves Raymond, who plays a old, grumpy psychic who keeps seeing how people die, sees his own death coming, and it's just a really great look at like the nature of psychics. Like, if a psychic would actually exist, like, what would that even look like? And wouldn't a psychic just, it's like that old scientific law of like, if a psychic, if you like look at something, if you observe something, you inevitably change it. And taking that to psychics as well, of like, if a psychic sees something and they try to change it, they would just enact the very thing that they're trying to prevent, which makes psychics useless, which is a really interesting take for a psychic story to take. I really enjoyed it. Just a really delightful episode that is equal parts like in a typical X-Files fashion, kind of scary and spooky, with a really great central performance from Peter Boyle, who feels distinctly unlike what we know him from like Everybody Loves Raymond. So yeah, that is my pick for this week.
I'm gonna take your word for it because I've not watched. It's on my list to someday watch because so many of my friends are like, I don't know how you haven't watched this yet.
It's really great.
I'm gonna put vibes into the universe that Donna Noble is gonna crash and burn.
I do not believe that will happen. Knowing the internet as I know it, I do not believe this will happen. But
yeah, she is kind of a bully.
I appreciate your optimism.
I'm trying to get you a win here eventually. Eventually, my throne will be torn down. I can't talk.
So
everybody vote for X-Files.
So you can vote for these on Twitter and TikTok. You'll have 2 days to vote once it goes up. And be sure to check our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages throughout the week for clips of podcasts that I'm uploading. And also go look at our merch shop at Not Another TV Podcasts Shopify. So without anything else, let's jump into our main part of the show.
I'm a buff baby that can dance like a man. I can shake a my fanny, I can shake a my can. I'm a tough tootin' baby, I can punch your buns. Punch your buns, I can punch all your buns. If you're an evil witch, I will punch you for fun.
So our first episode of the week, or our first show of the week, I should say, is Adventure Time. With our next batch of episodes as we go through it. Season 2, episode 24, Mortal Folly. Season 2, episode 25, Mortal Recoil. And season 3, episode 3, Memory of a Memory. So let's start with the two-parter here, which is ostensibly the season 2 finale, even though there is still one episode after this, technically.
It seems like a Ryan Murphy product then, because Ryan Murphy always ends his seasons and then have another episode.
Yeah. This is the end of the season though. For all. So yeah. Let's start with the Mortal Folly, where we get introduced to what will become one of the biggest big bads of the show, the Lich, an agent of death and chaos.
Yes.
Who is very scary, and voiced by the indomitable Ron Perlman.
I mean, listen, I immediately heard the voice and I was like, oh, that's perfect. Because Ron Perlman is the type of voice that you're just like, that is an evil villain kind of voice.
Yes. Like, it's just perfect. Oh, yeah, it's so good.
And I just love Ron Perlman. So like getting to close my eyes and just hear his voice, I'm like, this is glorious and wonderful.
Yeah.
But like it's a very terrifying image. I happened to watch these episodes this week with my 6-year-old niece. And it's her first time ever watching Adventure Time, and she was just like, no, and then like went and looked at her game instead.
Yeah.
So she just listened to the rest of the episodes.
Well, like the design of the Lich is very unsettling too, of being very like skeletal, but also huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, just deeply unsettling. But I do appreciate the gag, the continuing gag that Bubblegum has a million secret passageways and rooms in her castle.
Yes. This girl's like castle is somewhere I want to visit because it's like you'll never run out of things to find.
Yes.
Because you just constantly are finding new things because she's constantly introducing you to new parts of her castle. I also just like think it's hilarious that in this episode the Ice King is like asking permission from Jake and Finn to marry Princess Bubblegum, and they're just like, no,
you're weird. We're out.
You're the Ice King. She's our friend. You're bad.
And also, we don't have time for this.
Right. Also, we're 12 years old. Like, what do you expect from us? I just think it's funny that he went to them specifically. Like, he's just like, I I know who to ask permission. These two, this child and his dog.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun part of the episode where like the rest of it is like as Jake says, like their first like into the world deal. Like it does kind of show like how much Princess Bubblegum believes in Finn.
Yeah,
and
it does.
his ability. Because she very easily could have just like not shown them what was up. Because the Lich is a big deal. The Lich is a big scary deal. And Finn is a child.
Right. She believes in his goodness, in his bravery, and his ability to take a puzzle slash conundrum and like figure it out. Like she's like, "You're 12, but you can figure this out. I believe in you." And it's like, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and the sweater she gives him, which like puts a pin on like this isn't just like a thing of she's using Finn because he's convenient, because he's a kid who offered himself up to her, basically. Like she does genuinely care about Finn. And the way that you can care about a 12-year-old boy. Like she does genuinely have affection for him. Like it's not just a thing of Finn is young and stupid.
Right.
So I appreciated that. And also just like the joke at the end of the episode of like the power of really liking someone a lot.
Man, I wish that was real. Like honestly, like the more I watch of this show, the more I'm like, man, I wish some of this stuff was like this blind optimism and stuff like carried over into real life. Like oh, everything is solved by sunshine and happiness and positive thoughts.
Yep.
And a wild imagination. You can imagine it, it happens. Yeah. Also, the theme song is starting to really catch me. I'm like, yes, I like this theme
really
song.
Good song.
It's not long and it's not complicated. It's just simple, quick, and catchy. Like it has a nice little ditty behind it.
Everything you need to know.
Exactly. Jake the dog and Finn the human.
Yep.
They tell adventures never end. Adventure time.
Yep. You see the Ice King, you see Marceline, you see Princess Bubblegum, you see them too. That's it. That's all you need.
That's all you need.
That's a show.
Yep, exactly.
And then carrying over into Mortal Recoil, where Bubblegum just gets messed up really profoundly because the Ice King's stupid, kind of. Really just kind of stupid.
I mean, he is. Let's be real. But that's why I like him. I like my stupid idiot, okay? Yeah. I go for those characters that are really dumb. Like, they're just more fun to entertain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where we see Princess Bubblegum got infected by the Lich, or got possessed by the Lich. No one realized it for the entire episode. Except for Peppermint Butler, who is constantly on it.
Listen, we got proof that the Peppermint Butler should never be underestimated in this episode because he always knew exactly what was going on. He was like, oh, you guys are idiots. Like, let me solve this problem.
Yeah, no, if you have any cosmic spookiness, like, Peppermint Butler knows about it. And he's not going to be about it. Yeah, but just like some of the like body horror of Princess Bubblegum transforming into like the monster lich is just deeply unsettling. Even though it is weird.
Yeah, I mean she starts off being somewhat like zombie like, and that's why, like, I forget if it was Jake or Finn that said, "Oh, a zombie," but like I was like, is she a zombie? But I was like, no, she's that hideous monster thing. Because honestly, I did not catch the name of the monster thing until like I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's what it's called.
Yeah. I do think it's weird that like the end result of this is just to do a big kaiju fight. Where like Princess Bubblegum just becomes really huge and smashes things, which is like weird. When you say that Princess Bubblegum has been infected by a being of death, you know.
Listen,
But fine,
it works.
It works.
It works. In the land of Adventure Time, it works.
Yeah.
Don't look too closely. just accept it.
Yeah. I did enjoy Finn begrudgingly working with the Ice King at the end to freeze Bubblegum. And the Ice King mocking Finn about it, like taunting him about it. It's like, are you sure?
He's like, haha, are you sure? Yeah, it's very typical like sibling relationship kind of thing. Like, oh, I actually have to ask my brother for help for something. Oh, I actually have to get my brother's advice. Like, that is literally what I was thinking of. I was like, it reminded me of when I was a kid and my older sister and I, our relationship was nothing more than let's see who can get who in trouble first. And then there were random moments though where we had to team up together to get the other sibling in trouble. or solve a problem so that mom didn't find out about a very big problem. Yeah, like it. Yep. It's exactly what it felt like, and I was like, relatable.
Yep.
So relatable, especially because when you're 12 years old, things like that seem like the end of the world. Like, and Finn is just like, oh, I have to do this.
I don't want to do this. You're so annoying.
I don't want to do this. You're the worst. Like, that's truly 12-year-old behavior. Like, a lot of times we can easily forget that Finn is 12 years old, and then there's moments like this where you're like, nope, that's a 12-year-old. That's a 12-year-old.
Yeah. And then to get to the end of the episode where Princess Bubblegum apparently does not have enough gum pieces to rebuild herself. To be rebuilt by the doctors. Dr. Princess, all out of pieces.
Pieces. Because of course Princess Bubblegum is made out of bubblegum.
Yeah, I mean they're candy people, so
I know, but it's just like I just think it's hilarious. It's like, but she doesn't have enough to regenerate.
Yeah. So now she is what, like 12 or 13? She's 13 now. And I did like that as being like the line for the Ice King. It's like, no, even he has a limit here. It's like
he's like, that's a little young
that's
for
a bit
me.
young. We're out. It was just like
Gunter, let's go.
Yes. And then allowing like Finn to be the same age as her for once. And
yeah,
maybe hinting at something more in the future.
Possibly. I mean, it's not weird or strange anymore. Because why not?
Yeah.
Don't look too closely.
She is a very cute 13-year-old. Like, she's very adorable.
Yes, she is.
Like, they did a good job designing that and the voice for her.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. But let's.
I think all around the show is just really good at like taking these fantastical elements and being like, there's a reality to this, and we're like, you sure about that? And then it happens, and you're like, nope, actually, I can believe
Nope, that
that.
tracks. That tracks. Which takes us nicely into Memory of a Memory, where we spend another episode with Marceline. Here's a question I had while watching this.
Okay.
Does Marceline create these houses herself? Because I was thinking about this. She has the house in the cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a house in that cave when Finn and Jake found it? Or did Marceline build that house? And also, did Marceline just come across the treehouse? Or did she build that house? Like, I have questions here.
I feel like she built these things.
Yeah, and also,
like, she's a resourceful little vampire. Like, she would be able to build her own house. She can do her own shit. She is very independent. So yes, I think she built them herself.
Yeah, Marceline's very old. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that she could have learned to build things over the past 1,000 years.
I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah. But we meet one of
not the point of the episode.
It's not the point of the episode, but it was something I was really thinking about. Because Marceline just like happens upon these really nice houses that she lives in.
Or does she happen upon them in a lesser state and just makes them better?
It's possible.
It's also a possibility.
But we get to go into some of the memories of Marceline. Going from like when she was a little kid and having Hambo, the bear. In what appears to be a complete wasteland.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting detail here.
Also, it's very interesting to me that, most of the vampire lore that I have been inundated with over the years is that when vampires become vampires, like, they are what they are. They don't really age. But yet this is like, oh no, she was once a small child and then she grew up.
Which implies, was she always a vampire?
Right. And also, do born vampires have a different life cycle, growth policy, whatever, than bitten vampires? Like, I have questions. Right. You had questions about houses. I had questions about aging and vampires.
Well,
also, how long was she considered a child? Like, how many years does child vampire exist?
Well, there's an argument to be made that she was a half demon and then became a vampire. So the child Marceline that we see is but a half demon child.
That's valid, I guess. Kind of like the Antichrist kind of child.
Yeah. But anyways, it is very sad to see little child Marceline all by herself with not but a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And the line of I'm hurting you because I love you is so deeply haunting.
Yes. Also, can we talk about her boyfriend and like the design elements of what he looks like? Like,
her boyfriend is such like quintessential like
obnoxious rock star asshole.
Yeah,
like,
well,
that's
like,
literally what I think when I see him.
Like specifically like this early 2010s hipster. Like so aggressively hipster.
Yes.
Yeah, he has such a punchable face.
He does have a very and his hair, like, it bothered me. His hair being
It just just comes down the center, and it's like, oh my
the
god.
one strip in the center. I was like, bro, you need to comb that hair.
Yeah.
Like, move that hair out of your face. You makes you look disgusting.
Yeah, and it's like, Marceline, you are better than this. You.
I know. I was like, I wanted so much better for her. And like, poor Finn and Jake, they think they're saving her, but really they're actually making it worse for her.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my god.
but that's not their fault.
That's
Again,
not their
they were
fault.
working with only half the information.
Yeah. But the scene where they find the memory and they're going the monochromatic scene where they're traversing like trying to find the memory, and Jake going like hot and cold is so beautifully animated. Like one of the best scenes for animation on the show. Just outstanding.
Yeah. It really was. Like, it was so well done.
Yes. But like this episode is such an excellent example of the show telling children, hey, this is what gaslighting looks like, kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone gaslights you, you should beat them senseless.
Yeah. You need to make sure that you are aware of the warning signs here.
Yeah.
Like, these are the red flags to look for in a terrible relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And really important, like, highlighting all of the ways that Ash sucks. Because Ash doesn't view Marceline as an actual person. He views her as like a means to an end, kind of. Someone that he can leech off of, that he can sell her fucking prized teddy bear.
Yep.
And someone that he can demand make a sandwich for her. Like, fuck you, Ash.
I wanted to punch him in the face when he was like, make me a I was like, sir, we are not in the 1940s right now. Go make your own sandwich.
Yeah.
But also like his whole like the whole thing where he was like, you can't, she's like, he wouldn't like that I'm hanging out with mortals. And it's just like, oh my God, he's such a skeezy dick.
Yeah.
Like, let her have friends.
Yeah, and then just like the very end of the episode where they just like beat him. Like savage him. And like
it's in moments like this where I'm like, this is a kids television show? Okay. Yeah. This is great.
Like, it's so cathartic.
Yeah.
Oh god, I love it so much.
It's a good episode because yes, we get like more about Marceline and like her history and stuff like that, but like also we get to see a total dickwad get pummeled.
Yeah.
That's all we need. We just need a good dick pummeling. It's fine.
Right. Well, like, I think the interesting thing of going through Marceline's memories is you kind of see the ways that like life has let her down in different ways, of like her being left alone as a child and seeing Hudson eat her fries, the iconic moment of her dad stealing her fries. They're going like, hey man, don't do that.
Hey man, don't do that.
And then like kind of tracking her relationship with Ash. Like, just,
I mean, it makes sense as to how she fell into that relationship. Like, it really does. Like, she's doesn't really know what to expect from a good relationship. So she's like, I'll just go with what I know.
Yeah. I have more to say on this at a later date because there's more juice to be had. There's more juicy things to be had about this. But
there's more juicy things. But for someone who hasn't seen it,
yes.
Smart move.
So next week we are going to be talking about season 3, episode 5, Too Young, episode 9, Fiona and Cake, and episode 10, What Was Missing.
I'm excited to meet Fiona and Cake.
Yes, it's very fun.
I imagine it is, considering they just got their own series. So I'm like, must be important.
Which I am very excited to watch. Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of fun things to talk about next week. I'm very excited. So our next episode for this week is Justified City Primeval, season 1, episode 8, entitled The Question. This is the season finale for City Primeval. So I'm gonna hold off on like some of my more exuberant thoughts for a moment. Just talk about the episode.
Can I? Yeah. Well, first of all, can I just say that Mansell is such a pussy. Like he's such a pussy. Like he's like, yes, he's killed people, like whatever, but like when it came down to like his final moments, he was such a pussy. I'm just like, bro, you're whining. Like, why are you whining?
Yeah. Well, it kind of felt weird as the conclusion to like this story, you know?
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic.
It's like, so like Sweetie didn't end up mattering that much, and Clement was just like a guy that you could just shoot.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, and you know, and like, and we get to those final moments, and like, Carolyn's like she's like, called somebody to, come to the address, and he's like, did you call the EMS? And she's like, I called the morgue. And it's just like, there was very cheesy lines, and I was like, it wasn't well written in my opinion. It felt, I don't know, it just felt disappointing compared to how like they've built these characters up. And it's just like, okay.
Right. Well, it just felt like it left.
I was like, that's it?
Yeah,
okay.
Well, it felt like it left a lot on the table, in terms of like the book and like what they were going to do about the actual corruption and the guy that they were that was getting sent down the river for this crime. Like,
right.
It felt like it abandoned that in favor of like jumping back to Miami, you know? Which,
yeah.
If we were gonna do that, then what was like? Why did we even spend this thing?
Right. What was the build up with Sweetie, and why was it so important when why was it important to show him getting killed in favor of getting that book? Why was it important to talk about the book all season long? Why was it that multiple people were after this book, and it seemed like it was an important part of the case, and then we get down to it, and like it's not even mentioned. The guy, Mansell gets shot, and like there's no real justice for the guy that's getting going to prison for his crimes. It was a lot of messy threads that did not connect in the way that I thought they were going to.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if there might have been more of the season that maybe it got cut short or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, like there's like the cop being like, well, what's even matter if my name's in the book? Then why does it matter if anyone's name is in the book? You know?
Right.
Like, you can just say, well, what does it even matter if my name's in that book? Like, then what does anything matter?
Maybe that was the point of the season all along. Nothing matters.
Maybe nothing matters.
And everything's a lie. Like, it was just honestly, like, I don't know. And like with him deciding to, retire and like leave the marshal service, I was just like, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, this doesn't seem. I didn't feel like that's where this season was going to end. Like, that's literally what I thought. I was like, that's not where I thought this was going.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it was a bit undercooked.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Which I've seen happen a lot with shows, especially the ones that only have like 6 or 7 episodes to dive into everything. And they like start off big with these big ideas, and you're like, oh, this is going to be really good. This is going to be well established. It's going to be an interesting story from start to finish. And then we get to the episode before the last one, and you're like, okay, there's still a lot of unfinished business. How are we going to wrap it all up? And then the writers seem to realize, oh crap, we only have one episode left to finish all this up. And then they just throw everything at the wall, and they're like, whatever sticks is what's happening. And so like they forget about these other little details that they paid close attention to all season long. And it's like,
right,
this is a mess.
Right, yeah. But I like that Sandy got to kind of walk away in the previous episode. Like I realized like while I was watching like the 7th episode that like I didn't want to see Sandy be punished for being with Clement, like because like a lot of she's so passive, and that's like one of the ways that like I feel really bad for her character, because like she just kind of lets things happen. And anytime that she does take a kind of agency for herself, it tends to not go well. Like even just like when she goes to sell Menzel's painting and she can't get anything for it. Like anytime she tries to do something for herself, it never goes well. So and she's like clearly trapped in what is an abusive relationship that she has convinced herself is fun.
Yep. I've always kind of had a little bit of sympathy for her, because I always felt kind of like, she's being gaslighted by this guy. She's being convinced by him that, what they're doing is great and fun and wonderful, and this is love, and it's really not. And so like I've felt for her, because I've wanted her to be able to find her own independence and find her own way. And so for her to be able to walk away, I was like, you go, girl. Like, take charge of your life again. Get as far away from this asshole as you can.
Right, yeah.
And she did. She got away.
Yeah, well, like Menzel took advantage of her being in a life that he knew she didn't want to be in. Right? That he knew she was in like a rough part of her life. So he could just take her for a ride. So now it's like the optimistic thing of like maybe she can like walk away from this and build herself a better life.
Yeah.
Which is all that you can really hope for someone like Sandy.
Yeah, indeed.
And not just land herself in another abusive relationship somewhere else. But let's get to the end of this episode.
Which is the part you really only wanted to talk
where
about.
I can just go full clown. You messaged me about this episode, and you were like, I don't know if you've watched this yet, but oh my god, holy shit.
You're going to like the final moments. You're going to like the final moments. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's no way they brought Boyd Crowder back. It's just not a thing. They didn't bring Walton Goggins back. It's just, there's no way.
There's no way. There's no reason for it.
Yeah. So I see Natalie Z comes in, and I'm like, okay, this can't be it. While it is cool to see Natalie Z back, because she was a big part of the original series, and her and Raylan had a lot of good like back and forth through those seasons. Even though they, as we see, ultimately did not end up together.
Right.
But they still have good chemistry in their 5 minutes.
They do. And like you feel like they're good co-parents.
Yes.
Like that's what matters.
Even though she is clearly not happy with him.
No. Like you could tell that she literally, like, when she says to him, well, you couldn't quit for me, but you could quit for her, at least you could do it for her. Like, she's like, at least you could do it for her. Like, you could hear the pettiness in that voice. Oh, yeah. Like when she said that.
She went through some shit in Kentucky, so but I was like, okay, it's cool that she's back. It's cool that they got Natalie Z to come back, even though I didn't think she would. But this can't be it. And then we get the title card of like prison Kentucky, and we're following this guy, and I was like, there's no fucking way. There's just no fucking way. There's just no way that they're going to bring Boyd Crowder back, and then it just panned out, and it's Boyd Crowder. Just like,
I literally saw him. So like the only thing I knew about Boyd Crowder was based on the thing that you had said when you nominated him as the GOAT. And so I was just like going in blind, but like I knew visually what he looked like because I know who Goggins is. And so I was just like, all right. And I was like, oh my God, Boyd Crowder. Like I screamed it, and my niece was sitting near me, and she just kind of looked at me like I was freaking insane. But like I fully enjoyed myself because I'm like, I don't know much about this guy, but Drew really likes this guy. So I was I was immersing myself in it, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah. And like Goggins just slips back into Boyd Crowder so effectively. Like Goggins has kind of been doing kind of Boyd Crowder riffs for a few years now, but in the same way that like Timothy Oliphant has just been doing Waylon Givens for years. But like just like hearing him speak during like that sermon at the prison, and just like hearing the way that Boyd Crowder just talks and like his kind of like eloquence. There's a character on Justified who once told Boyd Crowder that he'll use 5 words when one will do perfectly well. And like that's Boyd Crowder.
Right.
And it's just there's something so comforting about like just the way that Boyd talks. Like he's just such a larger than life character.
Honestly, he had me intrigued to like potentially at some point go back and watch Justified.
We might do that. We may in fact do that at this point. Yeah, just such a good characters, good performance.
And it was a great like scene for him. Like it was, I was like, I'm not sure where this is going. Like I was like, once they put him in the van, I was like, okay, he's probably gonna escape in some way. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but like I feel like that's what's gonna end up happening. And he starts making those noises and annoying the shit out of the driver and the other guard. And I forget the actor's name, but the guy playing the other guard is in a lot of stuff. He's a great character actor. He always plays the hapless idiot who doesn't know anything about anything and doesn't know what's going on. And he does it perfectly in this scene. And it's just like, I literally was thinking as the scene was unfolding, I was like, please don't kill him. Please don't kill him. Like he's just an innocent. Just don't kill him.
Yeah. Louise Guzman.
Yes, yes.
So many
He's
things.
been in everything. So many things. Like he's in like everything. Like I truly don't think I've seen something that he hasn't been in. But great job. It was a great ending. Makes me wonder if they're gonna do more. Because I feel like what would be the why else would they have brought one of his biggest adversaries back into play? Like, you know.
Right. I think it's to show that, like, no matter what comes, like, Raylan has decided this is the path for him now. Like, even if, like, his biggest, like, the Joker to his Batman comes out, breaks out of prison, he's still gonna stay on that boat. You know, he's not gonna care too much at this point because he's out. But
yeah,
if there's anything that I know about Boyd Crowder, he is not making it anywhere near Mexico.
No,
he's not going anywhere near Mexico. He will. He is just an agent of chaos, and he will not ever make it that far.
yeah,
but yeah, just so much fun. And I lost my goddamn mind.
which I knew you would. Like, I don't know too much about your television tastes yet, but I knew that. I was like, oh, Drew is gonna like have a time.
Oh my god.
Drew is going to enjoy himself.
Yep.
And indeed you did.
So let's move on to our next show, which is Ahsoka Season 1, Episode 3, Part 3, Time to Fly. This is a fun episode, even if it's still a little table setting.
Yeah, so in my review about it, I talked about how I love that the focus was on the females. Like, yes, you occasionally got some 2 cents here and there from a male character. Most of the conversation and story centered on females, and I loved it. That it made for some great storytelling. We're still not at the point where we need to be, where like the big thing is happening. But you can definitely tell by the end of this episode that, like, okay, the next few episodes are going to steer the story in that direction. Hopefully, you hope that that's where the next couple episodes are going.
Right.
But like, yeah, it's still setting it up. It's still like establishing Sabine as trying to become a Jedi warrior. It's still establishing Ahsoka as being an educator versus being, a lone wolf, so to speak. Being part of a team, and it's establishing who Shin is as a person and honestly a fighter, because like Shin kicks ass in this episode.
Yeah,
she's just slightly outmaneuvered.
I unironically love Shin. Like perhaps in love with her. Yeah, just
throwing that out
there. Yeah. this episode to me kind of felt like after Andor, and like with that being such a departure from like Star Wars norms, with Ahsoka being like, hey, here's a lot of like Star Wars things that you like. So it felt like Star Wars greatest hits of like with being kind of recreating like the Obi-Wan and Luke like teaching moment. And like a dogfight in space while there's like a while dodging like an outer space creature, and
those creatures showed up, and I was just like, space whales,
which is a Rebels thing.
I was just like, space
the
whales?
big Star Wars Rebels
Question
thing.
mark.
Yeah, and like
I wanted to pet the space whales. And not gonna lie.
And there being like a big super weapon in space. Like it just feels like a lot of like, hey, Star Wars nerds, here's a lot of things that we know you like.
Yeah, honestly, like the maneuvering that Sabine and Ahsoka do with regards to like battling against Shin in this inner space period, place, whatever. It reminds me a lot of like those fun action sequences we got to see with Obi-Wan and Anakin in the prequels. Like,
Right.
Because Anakin was such a good flyer and Obi-Wan was a good fighter, but like he hated flying. So like there's a lot of that like push and pull dynamic also with Sabine and Ahsoka, and I liked it because I also felt like it helped to further establish them as a team again,
Right.
because like when they first start out, like they're not on the same page. They're not, one's trying to pilot, one's trying to fight. They're not talking to each other.
Right.
And then it clicks and they start talking, and it's like, bam, they're unstoppable, which is so great to see. But in the bigger scheme of things, not a lot happens.
No.
And like, okay, now we're on this planet where Thrawn is supposedly at, most likely. And so we're like, okay, that's the end of the episode. Okay, so hopefully these next 2 episodes or so are gonna like be that battle to get them to him, and or reveal his, whatever. And hopefully Ezra's around. Like, let's hope Ezra's because that's been part of the situation too. They're like, I bet you Ezra's not dead. He just disappeared.
Right. Uh, I liked the super weapon in this episode of kind of going away from like the problem that like the Force Awakens happens, where it's like, okay, we need a big super weapon, so we'll just make another Death Star.
Right.
And in this case, being like, we have a big scary thing that we're building, but it's more like sci-fi. It's more directly sci-fi than just big weapon in space. It's we're gonna build a big Stargate, basically.
It truly looks like a warp speed ring. Like, and that's the thing that's like throwing everybody off, because they're like, is this is this a warp ring? Like, and then they get closer and they're like, oh no, there's weapons on this thing. Like, I do still feel like Shin shouldn't have let Morgan take over in that scene, because like, I mean, I understand why, for storytelling reasons, like you can't like destroy Sabine and Ahsoka this early in the series. Like you can't knock them down that hard yet. Yeah. But like, I honestly, again, this goes back to liking the character of Shin, where you're like, Shin, make a better decision. Do not let Morgan do anything. She's dumb. She doesn't know anything about fighting in space.
Yeah.
Like, she misses that. Like, she hits them, but like not where it hurts to the point where Sabine can't fix it. Right. Like, which again was also awesome to see. Like, Sabine's a very good technical wizard, and so like to get to see her like stretch those muscles, like, was fun.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then seeing Hera have to talk to like the Senate, the other senators, and it's like, it is kind of drawing like the starting blocks of like how like the First Order came to be, and like sequel trilogy, because it's like, yeah, you all are just kind of hapless.
They
You're all
are.
hapless and
She's
petty
like
people.
telling them. She is telling them there is a problem, and she has proof that there is a problem, and they're like, "No, you just want to find your person." She's like, "Bitch, I could do that without you guys." Like, she's like, I'm telling you guys this because Thrawn is a big threat, and they're like, "No, he's dead," and she's like, "No, he's not."
She's like, "Is missing dead?"
She's
wasn't aware of that.
Exactly. She's like, guys, someone disappearing for a couple of years, especially in space, does not mean shit.
That doesn't mean anything.
Oh, but I adore Hera. She's one of my favorites. Yeah. Again, it was the episode of the women, and I loved that. Like, Hyung was there every once in a while to put his 2 cents in, and you're just like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know anything. You're just being a droid, going based on your what is it, my brain is tired. It is not coming up with the words. Based on your wiring. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not the word I'm looking for. But programming, thank you. Like, you're literally just saying things based on your programming. I am so tired. And like, it doesn't make any sense to the current situation. But thanks for your 2 cents anyway.
Yeah. Well, the exception to this is that we got to meet Jason, who is
Yes.
Hera and Kanan's son.
Yes, he's so. They picked a really good they picked a really good actor to personify this character. Like, it was perfection.
Yeah. And longtime Star Wars fans,
and you get to see Chopper for a little bit.
Longtime Star Wars fans will know that as a name that was also the name of Luke and Han's son in the Legends books.
Yes.
So spells some inauspicious things for Jason down the line.
Yeah.
In regards to his Jedi training.
The prequel series lover that I am, I especially loved the Hyang call out to Ahsoka, saying that, like, she's calling him out because he had said that that Sabine would not be a good Jedi good Jedi. And he goes, well, based on Jedi protocol, she would not have made it into training. And then he goes, but I suppose you came from a long line of non-traditional Jedi, so she fits right in. And it's like, I love that because I'm like, yeah, I love my non-traditional Jedi line. Like, these are all people that were not supposed to technically be Jedis. Yep. Or continue to be Jedis. Like, Qui-Gon was a rule breaker, like nobody's business. And then you've got Obi-Wan, who was not talented enough by any means to be taken on as a Padawan, but Qui-Gon said, sure, why not? And then you've got Anakin, who was way too old to become a Jedi, and then they were like, no, let's just do it. And then there's Ahsoka, who's not your typical type to be force sensitive, and she is. She's very force sensitive. She's very talented. Yep. And so I think eventually, once they both get past their stubbornness, they could be a very strong duo in the galaxy.
Yep.
But yes.
So let's move on to our next episode, which is Dark Winds, Season 2, Episode 5, Black Hole Sun. So I like how this season, a lot of the framing, or like specifically like time frame, is kind of revolving around the moon.
Yes.
Where like you have them being really interested in the moon landings of the 60s, and then the lunar eclipse in this episode.
Yeah.
And of course, like the moon is like really significant within indigenous culture, where like a lot of werewolf lore comes from actual like shifter mythology and indigenous culture. So like that feels like a really savvy inclusion into the season. To put like such a spotlight on like the moon and what's happening with the moon, and as it relates to like how everyone on the show is reacting to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really good. And otherwise, I think this is a fine episode.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, like there's not a lot happening.
I do feel like some of the choices were a little like, okay, that doesn't really line up with what I thought. Like, we learn more about what's his face, the blonde guy. And like his history and like why he's searching for his mother. But like when you see the scenes of his history, you're like thinking that he killed his mother. So it's like, did he not kill his mother? I'm confused.
Right.
Or did he think he'd killed her for many years and then found out that she wasn't? That's why he's looking for her, which is also a possibility. I mean, the dude's fucking crazy, so
yeah,
anything's possible.
Well,
but it was just it was interesting. There were some interesting choices, definitely some interesting choices with progression of storyline.
Right. Well, and there's also the feeling of like, why does this matter at all? You know?
Right. Well, and I think it's their attempt to try and make us feel sympathy for this guy, but like I'm like I don't. Like he's a dick. He's killed a lot of people.
Like he's clearly insane.
Like people lose family members in violent traumatic ways all the time and don't become sociopathic killers.
Yeah.
This man has chosen to become a sociopathic killer, and I don't care that his mom did what she did and that he had to do what he had to do
right
to get away from that situation.
Yeah.
Don't care. I just don't care. But yeah,
yeah, there's the problem with the episode is there's not a lot of good or negative things I have to say about it. It just feels like something that happened.
Which is sad considering it's the penultimate episode. Like there's only one more episode of this season.
Right?
Yeah, it is. They only got 6 episodes this season. So it's like, okay, I'm still trying to put the pieces together. Like I feel like we didn't get enough information to put more of the puzzle together, and I worry that we're going to run into a similar situation as we did with Justified.
Right.
Because like there's still the question of his son's death, Joe's son's death, and like now there's this new information, and it's like, okay, well, what does that information mean? Like, is he telling the truth? Is he just throwing some shit at Joe to fuck with him? Because that's also a possibility.
Right. Right.
So, just a lot. I don't know. I feel like we're still not getting enough answers.
Right. Yeah. We'll touch more on this next week. Let's jump to our next episode, which is Reservation Dogs, season 3, episode 6, entitled Frankfurter Sandwich. And this is such.
This is another one of them episodes. Sorry, go ahead.
This is such like classic Reservation Dogs, where you're like, oh, this is just a fun little lark, and then it goes, hey, what if it was also really fucking sad?
Yes, it's like we're romping along and Cheese is being forced to go out with his uncles, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a fun time because they're gonna razz him for being on the computer all the time playing video games. And then all of a sudden it's like, what if we sat in a powwow and chatted about our feelings? And you're just like, fuck.
Oh God, yeah. And it feels like the perfect follow-up to last episode, with the flashback to the 60s, where you got to saw like Brownie and them as teenagers,
and you got to meet Maximus, because they kind of bring up Maximus. They bring up Maximus in this episode in a very good way, and like it's a great connector between what Cheese is going through and what Maximus was going through. And I like that Cheese says at the end, he's like, I'm not going to become Maximus because I know I have my friends. I know I have you guys. And it's like, good job, buddy. Good job. You figured it out. Good job. You're not alone.
Yeah. But it's very powerful. It's a very powerful episode, and particularly a powerful ending to the episode, where it's like 3 guys who have gotten to the age where it's like, I have fucked up so monumentally, in like really kind of mundane ways, and like I've kind of like felt that as I've gotten into like my 30s of like, oh, I actually don't know anything. Where like you get to the age, because like you get to the age where you're like, oh, I actually know less than I knew 15 years ago.
Yeah. And that's what made this episode so emotional, because like, they're going through their mistakes in their life, and it's just like, oh, I feel that, bro. Like, I completely understand that emotion there. So yeah, it's a very hard-hitting episode disguised as a fun little camping trip.
Yeah, particularly talking about Maximus as someone they lost. In the same way that they lost Mabel, who actually died.
Yeah.
And both like how they're all like reconciling and grieving like both of those losses. It's like as far as I know, like Maximus could be dead.
Right.
Like they haven't talked to Bear yet, which is like
they have not spoken to Bear.
It feels like Bear could like clear up a lot of things for Big if they just like had a conversation, like had like one conversation together of like, hey, I met the deer lady and I met Maximus.
Right. Bear and Big just need to sit and have and at the end of the episode, that would have been a fun time for Bear to be like, yo, since we're talking about feelings, I met the deer lady. Like, I mean, maybe that'll happen, at a different time, or maybe we're supposed to imply that eventually they have that conversation off screen.
Right. Well, the funny thing about that is like Big, like particularly like when they were talking about like this is evidence, but like when they were talking about like Bigfoot, you cannot bring these things up to Big because he is superstitious and thinks that it's like saying Hail Mary in front of a mirror. Like if you talk about these things, then they will come to life and they will come to get you. So like if you talk about Deer Lady to Big, Deer Lady may come get him.
Right.
And that is the one thing that Big does not want to happen. Like, I think if you made like a list of like Big's biggest fears, seeing the deer lady ever again is like number 1.
He's like, don't even talk about it. I don't want to discuss it.
I don't even want to talk about Bigfoot. But most of it is just like such a fun episode before it like decides to go hard.
Hits you hard. Hits you hard. It really is. Like, it's funny. I
them like trying to fish or like trying to like pitch a tent.
Dude, them trying to get Cheese to get in the water, and he goes, "There's probably E. coli in there." They're like, "What?" But then also, I loved at the beginning where like Cheese is like, "Oh man, I really was fighting zombies for a while," and they'll go, "We've fought real zombies." He goes, "You have?" And then they list off all the different things that have gone against the indigenous people over the years.
So our next show for this week is Harley Quinn, season 4, episode 8, Il Buffone.
Yes. Listen, I enjoyed Bane the most of all of this episode.
Yes.
There's just something so entertaining about him still trying to fix the pasta machine, and it takes him to Italy.
Well, the best here's the best thing about that. It implies or overtly states that this season has lasted actual months.
Yeah.
Because it says that Bane spent months waiting in customs to get cleared. And then more months on top of that to get here. So, like, this season has been 6 months at the least.
I mean, to be fair, if you look at the shark babies,
that's true.
I mean, if we look at it from this perspective of the shark babies, but no, like I found it hysterical that he like tries to get directions from this man who's next to a tree, and the man just lays down and goes to sleep, and he goes, "You and your cursed naps," and it's just like he's getting so angry about Italians that take naps. Like, I'm just like, this is funny as hell. And then going and finding I forget her name. Nacaroni? Yeah, Nacaroni. Mama Nacaroni.
Yeah, Mama
Nacaroni. And she teaches him how to make pasta, and then he thinks he's free and clear, and she's like, "Oh no, I need someone to take over the business." And you're like, in what universe would a woman look at him and be like, "Yep, that's gonna be the new face of the Mama Macaroni business"?
Well, I was like, if I was Bane, I would just stay there because, like,
pasta.
What's going on in Gotham? What's going on in Gotham that needs my attention? Like,
well, Nora's in Gotham. Come on. Shacking up with the Freeze or whatever his name is.
Oh yeah, Leonard Snart.
Oh. Shacking up with him, you know. She doesn't care about Bane.
Yeah, and that
poor Bane.
That part of the episode is so fun. Like, the Legion of Doom stuff is so stupid.
It's so dumb. Like, also, just the Lex Luthor part of it. It's just like he builds this ray that only goes within 10 feet of the Earth. So he's like, I know, I need to blow something up to extend the ozone layer 10 feet.
Which is definitely not how the ozone layer works.
That is not how it works. But in the world of Gotham, it does.
Like, it's so aggressively not how the ozone layer works or how science works at all.
Again, it's don't look too closely.
Right.
It magically works. It's fine. That's how the universe works in Gotham.
But it's an episode that forces Nora Freeze to, like, come to the forefront more, who aggressively wants to stay behind her desk.
Yeah. She's like, I don't want to do anything. productive at all.
Like, her entire thing is just like consummate nihilism.
Yeah.
Like, Nora Freeze lives her life like somebody who constantly knows that the world is going to end.
And doesn't care.
Does not care. And it's just, she is the person in those movies who says, I don't want to end. If the world is ending, I want to end it having sex. And that is Nora Freeze. That is how she spends every day of her life.
Yep. And can we just like talk about the fact that 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 the problem is an IT problem, and so Shark is like, listen, I have been waiting for the villain to cause an IT problem so that I could really cause havoc by hacking something. And then Nora tries to use a ray that she shouldn't be using, and she makes his hands too big.
Oh, God, it's just so good.
There's just so much chaos that it's fun. It's so much fun.
Mm.
And that beauty products are what ultimately ultimately free them from their chamber of their locked up chamber within the Legion of Doom.
Yeah. Well, and I loved that what is revealed is that Lex Luthor does not have an altruistic goal of fixing the ozone layer, but just of screwing Superman over.
Yeah.
That is the extent of his goal. Like, he couched it in, oh, we're going to fix the ozone layer because a doomed Earth means we cannot villainize it. But no, Lex only cares about screwing over Superman.
Yeah, he does not care about anything else. He's just like he's a one-trick pony, and he's very tunnel visioned, and that makes him the most ridiculous villain in the entire show.
Like, I said a few weeks ago when we talked about this episode, but he is such like the Andrew Tate villain. Like, he's just that to a T of someone who's so obsessed about like this thing. But like, that thing does not give him any, like, the same way that like Andrew Tate is really obsessed with women, but women have never given Andrew Tate a single thought in their life.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor is obsessed with Superman.
And Superman does not
care.
Does not Superman care. Does not even have Lex on his radar. He's just like, whatever, bro.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fun episode though. It is a really necessary episode to like detach ourselves from Harley and Ivy though. Because there's only so much we can deal with like those two and their relationship incommunicado, you know?
Right, exactly. Like, every once in a while you have to focus on something else, and this was a glorious example of focusing on the other characters.
Right. So let's jump to our last episode of the week, which is My Adventures with Superman, Season 1, Episode 9, entitled Zero Day, Part 2, which is the penultimate episode of the season. Which is fine.
I honestly don't remember the episode. Like,
yeah,
that's how I feel about it. Like, it's at the point of it didn't stick in my brain because it was okay. There was nothing too
well,
interesting about it.
the episode highlights why Task Force X is very bent on defeating Superman, which is okay. It's fine. The rest of it is Amanda Waller making very stupid decisions that no sane person should be making.
Right.
Especially not somebody at her level. And Amanda Waller, while unscrupulous and amoral, does not make stupid decisions, you know?
Right.
Like, you can always kind of see the through line to her plans, but, like, releasing Livewire, who you know would then release Amazo, is like, that's not a smart decision. Like, that's just, you're just creating chaos for chaos sake, and that's not Amanda Waller's MO.
No, she usually has a plan for what she's doing.
And that's not a plan. She seems blindly hell-bent on stopping Superman, which is not Amanda Waller. Like, it's just, I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. It's nothing.
Yeah, but does not feel the way that either the lore or this show has drawn Amanda Waller to be. So it's okay. Like, it's fine. Like you said, it's fine.
It's fine.
The backstory for, like, how Task Force X started with, like, the general and Amanda Waller as younger military people. I think it's fairly interesting with, like, how Kryptonian technology actually got to Earth and was backwards engineered, and shows that, I mean, the interpretation seems to be that Zod attacked Earth and then Krypton exploded.
Yep.
Which kind of stopped that. Which is, like, is kind of a plot beat that I don't think we've seen played out in a whole lot of other Superman stories of Zod actually attacking Earth prior to Superman.
Yeah, it's usually after Superman. Is generally when we see Zod.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, that, you're right, that was interesting. I don't know, just overall, I was just, like, not impressed with this episode.
Right. The other theory I've heard is that it could have been Brainiac.
Okay.
Who is traditionally, like, fall of Krypton villain. So that could also be an interesting avenue for Adventures of Superman to go down in a later date. But aside from that, yeah, there's not a lot here. Beyond just, like, having another fight with Amazo, which is, you can only go so far with Amazo. Like, what makes Amazo an interesting villain, like, kind of granularly, is Amazo as a Justice League villain, you know? As someone who can borrow all of the Justice League's powers and use it against them.
Yep.
But if it's just Superman, then that becomes kind of limiting. That becomes just someone who's very strong and fast, you know?
Yes.
So, you know, there's a significant half-life, and, like, just having Amazo be a kaiju is fine, whatever.
It is what it is.
It's, you know, whatever. So, yeah, it's definitely an episode that I'm like, I'm not terribly bothered one way or another.
Yeah. Stuff happened.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. And it kind of sets the table for the end of the season. So whatever.
It does.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine. So that's it for this episode. Next week we will be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, which comes back for its 4th season, and the end of What We Do in the Shadows, season 5. So, till then, Mads, where can we find you online?
You can find me on pretty much all the socials, X/Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. You can find me at all those at Dorothy NYC89. I'm always talking about television, probably to the point of annoyance. If you check me out this week, I'm so sorry. I will be talking about nothing but our flag for a while. So, sorry, not sorry. My gay pirates are back. Sorry, not sorry.
And you can follow me on Twitter at the Draconig and Blue Sky at Draconig, TikTok Drew_Koenig, and I'm also on Serialize for all my TV I'm watching throughout the week. You can follow the podcast at Not Another TV Podcast at Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, YouTube, Instagram. And again, you can find our merch shop at Not Another TV Podcast Shopify. Sorry, that is bit.ly /Not Another TV Podcast Shopify. And you can find more of the episodes on Apple and YouTube and whatever podcatching device you have. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And be sure to share us on whatever socials you use. And be sure to email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, goat recommendations that you have. Until next week, be sure to remember, do not go in the ocean. It is none of your business.
Indeed.